I think it's pretty safe to say that by far, one of the most interesting aspects of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is how director J.J. Abrams is of course finding ways to connect this film to the prequels and the originals, as well as using Star Wars Legends / the Expanded Universe as inspirational source material to tell a very unique and original story. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, what's really interesting about Episode 9 is, of course, how they are really going to be utilizing all of the callbacks to the prequels and the originals that are going to be used as a way to benefit many of the characters like Rey and Kylo Ren in this story. Again, like I say, we do know that Rey and Kylo will be using a lot of artifacts from the past as well. That's going to make them progress from start to finish of the plot of this film. Now, these past couple of weeks or so, we've been learning a whole lot more about this film, and when it all comes down to one of the plans by J.J. Abrams and George Lucas, this is where things begin to get a little bit intriguing here, involving Anakin Skywalker and something very unfortunate of a scene that was ultimately scrapped for the character of Anakin in the second act of this movie. Now, specifically, what's really intriguing about all of this is that it's described that during the rewrites for the film for the months of November and December of 2018, just last year, is that George Lucas was involved in a significant way to adjust the second and third acts of the film. It's described that one of the scenes George worked on was a scene featuring Anakin Skywalker. It's explained that the scene was scrapped for the final script of Episode 9. However, it's described that the plan was to involve Anakin Skywalker's Force Ghost next to a bonfire where Luke's Force Ghost was trying to help Rey, where Rey is said to walk off into an ancient temple training by herself. It's said that this is when Anakin's ghost was set to appear next to Luke, talking about the girl Rey, where Anakin's Force Ghost would even place his hand on R2-D2's head, and reminiscing the past. Additionally, it's described that it was supposed to be a moment of Anakin offering advice to his own son Luke about the girl Rey. This scene was planned for reshoots and unfortunately cancelled. However, it was replaced with another father and son reunion scene between both Anakin and Luke, which is said to take place within the netherworld of the Force, where Luke unveils what it appears to be like in front of both Rey and Kylo Ren, with Anakin by his side. So let's go over a couple of parts about this now. We do know that this movie is going to have a lot of callbacks to, of course, the original ideas by J.J. Abrams and, of course, Lucas of their own version of the sequel trilogy. And with that being said, you guys may recall around 7 months ago we went over this scene. We didn't know too much about it other than the fact that it took place inside of an ancient temple, which now it's pretty safe to say that is indeed the Prime Jedi Temple that we have been talking about for the past 6 weeks, give or take. So in this particular scenario, they were going to have a scene involving both Rey, Anakin, and Luke. More so, both Anakin and Luke next to a bonfire as Force Ghosts, where Anakin would be exchanging dialogue with his son Luke Skywalker, offering advice to him about the girl Rey and how to go about her training, where there would even be a moment where Anakin would briefly rest his hand on top of R2-D2's head, reminiscing the past. Again, I think, a lot of fans should always remember that, yes, R2-D2 is a great, friend of Luke's and now of Rey's, but was also a great friend of Anakin Skywalker. The droid is so iconic. He has been around in every single Star Wars film to date, pretty much, and everybody just loves that character. So having Anakin, touching R2-D2 and placing his hand on his head would have been so heartwarming to see on the big screen. I think a lot of fans would have even got teary-eyed just watching that. So this particular sequence is said to take place next to a bonfire. Now, I could only imagine the cinematography of what it would have actually looked like on the big screen, having the bonfire with both Force Ghosts of Anakin and Luke next to each other, as well as R2-D2, with Rey walking over into the distance into a temple where she trains by herself. And this is where basically Luke and Anakin talk behind Rey's back about how to go about her training. Now, the thing here is this: we do know that the rewrites of Episode 9 was very vital to the storytelling of this movie. It was a very important role for George Lucas and even J.J. Abrams to get the story right. A lot of adjustments were made during those 2 months of November and December that were all going to be used for the reshoots that we are experiencing right now, all the way from April until September of this year, are of course where reshoots are going to end in September, just before they aim to complete the movie come October of 2019. So what's really great about this particular scenario as well is that this also allows, one to realize that yes, though the scene was canceled, another scene was actually replacing this moment where both Anakin and Luke will have a father and son reunion within the netherworld of the Force to replace that scene in itself. Now, the last thing that I do want to touch on that's very interesting, of course, is that this was actually said to be filmed during the month of August of this year, where that was ultimately scrapped, and George Lucas was actually set to direct the scene between both Mark Hamill, Hayden Christensen, and even Daisy Ridley, with the character R2-D2 as well, on set inside of this ancient temple. So it would have been very much in tune with the mythology of Star Wars. It would have felt, I guess you could say, very dreamlike, the way it was being set up, the cinematography and all, because it is, a moment in which we have two Force ghosts, after all, exchanging dialogue about how Rey's training would actually be done, and how Luke should actually train her through the ways of the Force. Anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.